I can't wait for my chair to come in next week because that means I can start filming sit-down videos on it and it'll actually look kind of nice and be a comfortable level and be at a comfortable height. But also, please don't mind my hair. My hair is giving flat, but let's not worry about that. I had to wear a headset over it yesterday, so it didn't even have time to just enjoy having volume. It just literally got flattened as soon as I showered. So today, yes, we're ignoring that. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about tips that I have for networking events at uni. This obviously is not targeted for people who are meeting professionals or are there for job fairs or something like that. That's a whole different ballgame. And while most of these things are still applicable, it's just a different vibe altogether. So please don't expect that these things will be transferable to that as well. I don't know who I am thinking I'm qualified to talk about these things. I've never studied networking. I've never looked at like communication and body language, whatever. So people who do that and study that are probably much better qualified to talk about these things. But I am just saying the things that I found useful and the things that I did that helped me out during networking events, especially because we've been in lockdown all this time and you're not really forced to network on Zoom. Also, I've kind of just been avoiding networking events altogether. So it definitely helps that now I'm starting to do all these networking things again, that I had these things in mind to help me kind of put myself out there a bit better and to just enjoy the event instead of being nervous the whole time and being shy and really not making the most of the event, which was made for networking. So without further, I can never say this right. Without further ado, let's get onto these tips and yes, enjoy the tips. So I've kind of split up the tips into two separate groups, and the first group is the material things or like a physical thing. The very first one of those tips is to wear an icebreaker. So for example, I've gone to networking events where I wore like, because I have short hair, right? So I've worn these butterfly clips. I think they're butterfly clips. I've worn these butterfly clips and also just a big clips, and because they've got cute patterns, people are able to point them out and talk about them. If they see that you're wearing something they don't normally see, then that makes you more approachable because they'll have something to bring up as an icebreaker. You've got the icebreaker prompt on you and it's inviting for people to say something about it or to comment something about it. It doesn't require for you to be the first one to make a move. You already did the first move. You already made the first move by wearing that thing. As with any icebreaker, it's much easier to talk about other things from there. So the first tip is wear an icebreaker. The second thing for the material tips is to bring pens. A lot of networking events at uni have icebreaker activities that require you to write things down. If there's someone next to you who hasn't brought one, then you can offer. I know it's COVID time, so you do gotta kind of keep in mind that you want to be clean. If you don't want to take that back, make sure you bring pens you're happy to give away. Also, they're not obliged to go back to you at the end of the event to give back your pen. Stemming on from bringing something and giving it to someone, there's all these other things like gum or mints or hand sanitizer, things like that you can give to other people as well, and you can offer it nicely. That's basically all of it for the material things that I had in mind for tips and techniques. The next thing we're moving into is more language kind of things. That's including both body language and also verbal language. And the first one that I've got here is don't cross your arms. I get it, you don't have things to do with your hands and it's so awkward just standing there like with your arms flat. Like what are you supposed to do? But do not cross your arms because you look very closed off. Depending on your posture, you can even look intimidating. Even though you're not doing anything with your hands or with your arms and you feel uncomfortable doing that, don't let it be that the thing you resort to is crossing your arms. Because look how unwelcoming it looks. Going on from there, what do you do if you've got nothing to do with your hands and your arms and whatever? The thing that I like to do when I'm at networking events is to hold a drink. I usually bring a bag that makes it comfortable for me to have my arm laying over it without my arm just being flat like that. And that way as well, like if you're holding something in one hand, you're not gonna fall into that trap of fidgeting because you're nervous or you have no one to talk to. Next thing, which still kind of stems on from that, is how to stand. You're gonna go towards people who kind of to you seem inviting. It's much easier to interact with people who just have a comfortable posture. Have fluidity in the way that you're standing. That way you look casual and much more approachable. If you have to, practice in the mirror to look at yourself and how you're standing. If you feel awkward, then you probably look it too. Try to practice poses, which sounds very weird, but if you're not good at comfortably standing just naturally, then practice in the mirror to find a way that, you know, your body looks comfortable and open at the same time. The next part is, what about when you're actually talking to someone? First thing, keep eye contact. There's nothing more awkward than having a conversation with someone and their eyes are literally going everywhere else but at you. Fair enough if you want to look away every now and then, but if the entire conversation you're looking elsewhere, that is the most uncomfortable conversation ever. I mean, obviously, depending on the topic, there are worse things that could happen. But when you're talking to someone, keep eye contact with them. It's very hard at first, I understand, especially because we've been interacting through screens. You don't really have to look at someone, you just have to look at the screen in general, and you kind of look like you're keeping eye contact with them, but you're not forced to actually look at someone in the eye. It's just so much more engaging to have a conversation with a person who's looking directly at you. They look more attentive, they look much more interested. Show that you're engaged in that conversation in that way, just keeping eye contact. Intimidating, I know, but just practice it with other people. First the people you're comfortable with, and then try to work it in and build up your resilience or build up your eye contact stamina as you keep going to networking events. The second thing that I find really useful for uni networking events is don't use big words. If you find that you can't use smaller words to explain the thing that you're talking about, then you need to get better at explaining the thing you're talking about. I really stumbled through my words just then. It makes the conversation so much more natural. You're not there to show how many words are in your vocabulary. That's not the point of a networking event. The next thing is don't just constantly think about what you're about to say in response to someone. In a lot of the workshops I've gone to, like for mentoring and for leadership, they call this active listening. Might have mentioned it in another video, but active listening, I'm not going to be the best person to explain it, so I suggest if you don't know what it is yet, go look up other videos that explain it much better. Don't make it always about yourself. So when they say something, you find that if you're constantly thinking about what you're going to say in response to that, the thing you do end up replying tends to be about you. Whereas if you're paying attention to what someone is saying, you find that the reply you give them is maybe something to expand their story, to elaborate on their story. You ask questions and you try to open up that conversation more. And that way, the conversation just flows so much more freely and naturally instead of it being choppy. On that note as well, when you're talking to people, don't just talk about yourself. If the other person is very engaged and they're asking lots of questions, in my response, in a way that doesn't cut the conversation short, I have to find a way to also make it about them or to also bring them into the story. Otherwise, then you're too self-centered, and really the point of a networking event is to put yourself out there and to also find out more about other people. So it's a two-way street, and a conversation is supposed to be a two-way street, not just you lecturing someone else, not just you talking at someone about yourself. There's no fun in that, and also you're really going to be a very boring and annoying person to talk to if I'm never allowed to, say something about myself too. Finally, in terms of talking to people, don't be afraid to start the conversation yourself. I know it sounds awkward and I know it feels awkward, and you know what, to be fair, it probably is, but as soon as you get over that, it's much easier to then apply these tips or these techniques to have a comfortable conversation, and you can actually find out things about the other person, and it's going to be a nice networking event with a nice outcome. So yeah, don't be afraid to be the first one to start the conversation, and also be open to people starting a conversation with you. The final tip is, and you're gonna hear everyone say this, not just with networking but literally everything in general, is you have to be yourself. So with all of these tips, as in the way you dress, the way you offer things to people, the way you stand, the way you talk, you have to be yourself. Like, yes, put in more effort to be more approachable, more welcoming. All of that has to still be true to you as a person. I'm not saying be rude to people who are not like you. I'm saying don't try to impress people with a version of you who isn't actually anything like the real you. There are a lot of people in networking events. There are so many people in so many places. So if the first person you talk to, or second or third or fourth or fifth person you talk to, doesn't seem to click with you, that's fine. You just keep going and introducing yourself to new people. It's not a big deal. There's always so many more events, and the main thing is that you're putting yourself out there to get to know more people and to get to know more about different things, which is always fantastic. So good on you. But I think that's all the tips. I think was there 10? Maybe we'll find out when I finally, edit this. Thank you all so much for coming to today's video. I hope it has helped you. These things have definitely worked out for me. I've gone to, I think, just in the last month, at least 6 or 7 networking events, which is more than one a week. Which, coming from a COVID time has been very overwhelming, but also great to start getting my social cogs turning again, because I am a very social person, and it's been quite lonely not being able to exercise those social muscles. I've used cogs and muscles in a single sentence, like for two different metaphors. Oh my goodness me. If you have any networking tips, please leave them down in the comments. I would love to know more. I'm clearly not an expert at this, but I would love to learn more from you, and also let other people know more from you, because you've probably also got your own experiences and have found that things work for you. Again, grain of salt, figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And I think that is it. That is it. Have a lovely week, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to another video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and press the notification bell, and anything else that there might be to do with YouTube. I appreciate you, and I pray you have a blessed week this week. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!